Hello, and welcome back to the Stories of Northern Life podcast, brought to you by the Sault Ste. Marie Museum. I'm your host, Nicole, and welcome back to another episode. So in today's episode, I bring you an interview that I had with Ashton Carter. And now he is a new employee here with the museum, right now he is working as a consultant for us on a project. And so he didn't really talk about that, but what he did talk about is his life as an author. And he just released a book called Sweetheart. It's available for purchase in the gift shop. So come and check out Ashton's book after this episode. I'm sure you'll want to check it out. But today we are going to talk with him and talk about his journey as a new author. And so let's get into the episode. Can you state your name for us?
Yes, I'm Ashton Carter.
All right. And when and where were you born?
I was born August 11th, 1996 in Elliott Lake, Ontario, which is just northeast a bit.
Yeah. So where was your family originally from, like if they weren't from Elliott Lake, and like how long had they sort of been there?
We are from Elliott Lake.
Okay.
But we have been there since the mining boom. I don't know exactly the date of when that would have started, but my grandparents are from Larder Lake and Kirkland Lake, respectively. Came to Elliott Lake to work. They met, and the rest is history, of course.
Yeah. So when did you guys end up moving to the Sioux, and sort of like how old were you when you came here?
Right. I came here in the 4th grade, so you can do the math for me because I'm not good at math. So around, I want to say it was maybe 2006, we moved to the Sioux. And we moved so my dad could have a job here. He found a job here. So.
Okay. And now, what was your sort of community like when you moved here? Like, sort of, what area of town were you in, and like just sort of the vibe you got?
My dad was very particular about a house out off of Baseline in Parkwood, the neighborhood Parkwood. And it was a bit beyond our means, but he had a feeling about it for some reason. I don't know why. So we lived out there, pretty much out of town. And I went to Armour. And at the time, community was, I'll be honest, it was difficult. There were positives, but there were also lots of difficulties, connecting to the people who lived in the neighborhood and the people that I went to school with. That's just beginning. Mm-hmm. And we lived there, pretty much until grade 7, and then we moved into town. So for a while, we lived out there, yeah.
And then what was it like when you moved into town? Like, sort of, what neighborhood did you move in?
Peapatch. We lived on Promenade. And I went to Ben R. McMullen at that point for my grade 8 year, and it was a 180. Different experience. Everybody was very convivial, very cool. I had a much better experience in town than I did out of town. I'll just say that for salience.
Mm-hmm. And so then what high school did you end up going to?
Well, at the time, Superior Heights was the Dun, technically, for a year. So my grade 9 years at the Dun, loved it. I miss it today. It was such an antiquated place. And then from grade 10 to graduation, I was at Superior Heights at where it is now. And that's where I graduated high school.
Mm-hmm. And then now, like in high school, did you have sort of an idea of what you wanted to do when you grew up?
I'm very fortunate that I had encouragement very early on for my art.
Yeah.
My mother, I have to credit her. She's a reader, has been since I was very, very young. And I had elementary school teachers and high school teachers who could see that I was not only interested in writing, but that I had an aptitude and encouraged me. So I would say pretty much from grade 10, I had the idea that I was going to be a writer, and decided in grade 11 very quickly that I was going to go to Algomiu for English. I chose English for the very specific reason of becoming a better writer. So that's why I chose to do that. I learned a few different things along the way, but yeah.
So what was it like at Algomiu?
At the time, for me, it was euphoric. I had a grade 11 and 12 teacher tell me that she could see that when I reached that point that I would blossom because I would be meeting my people, and she was very correct in that. It was, I think, the best educational experience I've ever had. I've made connections. I made connections during that time that I've kept to this day. Professors that I had who are now, dare I say, kind of colleagues of mine as I age and do this scholarship thing, which is something that you just continue to do once you're done, if you're interested in it, and I am. It was difficult. It was very difficult. I passed through a fire going through that, but I made it out on the other side, and I grew from it, and yeah, it was an amazing, excellent experience that I really think, if you're anything like me, then you should do it, because it's worth doing, just for the personal growth alone.
All right, and then so speaking more about sort of your writing and everything like that.
Right.
So when did you sort of start writing? I guess professionally, but also sort of how did that, like, your I guess like maybe amateur-ish writing sort of start with that, and then like how it transformed into the professional?
Sure. Well, so to begin, I'm a millennial at the very end of the era. So growing up, I had a mixed media sort of influence. I love to read. My mother really stoked my imagination, specifically reading fantasy. So of course, starting with classics like Tolkien, obviously, but also Stephen King and Anne Rice and Michael Scott, and that really, I think, it came across to me that you could live that way, that you could make something like a book and be a person who makes books and writes books. And I was enchanted with that on my own. And my mother, of course, who's been my number one fan since I popped out of her, pushed me really, like, yes, do that. I want a child who's an author, do it. So I had that beginning, right? So there's the books, and video games they're a huge inspiration for me. They get a bad rap, but especially vintage games from 95 to the year 2015, a lot of them are art works, stories, just in video interactive format. And I derive a lot of inspiration from them today, the stories that I learned playing those games. So I started there, and I'd always had my own sort of journaling process where I would write down little stories that I came up with them in my mind. But it wasn't until, I would say, that the 11th grade that I would say I officially began writing professionally. I published a poem in Teen Ink magazine, and it would have been like 2013, right? So I published a poem there, and then fast forwarding to my second year in university, I published the 2016 Canadian University's guidebook edition for Algomiu. Thank you, Zane Schwartz of Maclean's magazine. That was my first paid gig, $75. It's good. So that was my first paid work, and then I published a couple of things at the university in the remainder of my program, through a creative writing course, and then through a competition, Algomiu Writes, all available in the museum or in the university's archives. If you're interested in looking into that, some really great essays in there. And after that, it sort of just snowballed into where I find myself today with Sweetheart in my book. And I had a stint with Fringe North as well in between that, which very grateful to folks like Tova, who shepherded me through that process. Very helpful. Yeah.
And then so as you sort of evolved at that as a writer, what lessons have you learned?
Right. That's a big question because they come in waves, lessons, right? Especially young artists. You go through, I think, phases of yourself. And I started, like most being very protective of my work. I didn't want to share it with anybody because I was afraid that someone was going to steal it. I was also, and that's a defense, because what was really going on there, and what's going on there for any artist, writer, whatever you are, who is afraid of showing their work, it's because you're afraid of being criticized, of course. But you grow up a little bit, and this is one of the amazing things about university, is it teaches you that criticism is a big word that means a lot of different things, and it doesn't have to be negative. Valuable criticism changes you, it builds you up. So one of the most important lessons that I learned, that I would say, if anyone were to ask me, like you're asking me now, it would be that you have to make a transition from seeing other artists as competition to seeing them as food. You have to be able to consume and take in other ideas to build yourself up, because you can be, a Khalil Gibran, that's fine, but, you're still only as good as what you read, and so you have to read, and you have to learn from other people and be willing to take other people, other art into you, and trust that you're going to come out on the other side of it still yourself, but having taken in this new stuff that you find fascinating. And really, it's about that. It's about being curious and passionate about writing, not just your own, but other people's as well, and being able to identify what sparks you. And it's really difficult to get there, but when you get there, it's like a world opens up for you. You become a scholar then.
So what's your creative process like?
Well, very inconsistent and fragmented. I'd like to dispel a myth that's very popular in the artist world, that I'm sure, especially if you're younger, you're going to hear this, that you have to be writing every day or making every day to be worth something. That's not true. The time that you spend not making things is still valuable, because you have to take in the world in order to spit it back out at other people, to tell them, to show them, this is what I saw, this is where I was. So my process is very much a series of taking in and then flash, kind of throwing things down. And then you start the artifice of it, which is taking your cutting implements and rearranging it and making it intentional. So it's not slapdash, but I would call the beginning processes of my art very slapdash. I can write a poem in 5 minutes, and then I take that poem and I work it for a couple of weeks, and I change it and I rewrite it. And for me, the truth of the matter is that I could rewrite a poem infinitely. I could sit with it and just masticate over it and just churn it and churn it and churn it, and it would continue to change until I decided to stop. And that's something I had to learn, was when to stop, and let something live, which is what this book in front of me is all about. It's just me knowing that I had to stop and just let it go. So that's the best I can do for explaining my process.
And then sort of like, also, what is it like to be a queer writer from like your perspective?
Right, that's a very important question. So being a queer writer means to me a lot about inheritance. So I'm very specifically identify as a queer gay man. And so there are aspects of our history, the history of my people, my community, that are very important to me as an artist. I feel a presence always with me, because there's a lot of dead people, to put it bluntly, involved in that story, who didn't get to live past the age of, some of them past the age of 20, some of them past the age of 30, right? And I am just the kind of person who feels an obligation to be excellent for them, my kin, who sacrificed themselves through history, not intentionally, right? I'm sure they would have loved to have lived a full life, but if you're the kind of person who believes in the other and something else, and then I believe that they're there with me, and I gather a lot of strength from that history, and it's very emotional and very painful, but I've taken it into myself. Being a queer writer has to do with that, sometimes there's a little bit of guilt into it. I feel like I owe my ancestors that I don't know, that I'll never meet, because of this history. I owe it to them to be the best I can be as an artist, and to share my experience walking through the world of men, which is really, truly what it is sometimes to be a queer gay man. And I think it's valuable. I think queer art is valuable because it's so much a translation of the self to the other, what it means to make your way. It's hard to do. Harder for others than it is for others. Some people have a difficult time with it, but I gave myself chances and evolved, and it's important to do that too, to give yourself a chance. So yeah, that's what I'll say about that.
Perfect. And then, do you want to name some of your sort of favorite authors or artists?
Would I ever like to? Anne Carson, number one right now. And yes, she is a new muse, but Anne Carson is one of those authors that you read and is going to be on your shelf for the rest of your life. So Anne Carson, if you're queer, autobiography I've read, read it. It's very good, very, very good. A little odd for a poetry book, but that's what makes it good. Elizabeth Hay, obviously really great. I love as well Haruki Murakami. Who else can I say? Rafe Larson, good author there. Sylvia Plath is a good class. I mean, I guess we can call her a classic now. I mean, that's history, right? And a little bit less so Ted Hughes. I mean, we've got some problems with Ted Hughes, but hey, you do what you can. Let's see who else. I'll name a couple more. And this is important too, I have a really interesting relationship with Ocean Vuong. I don't love Ocean Vuong, but I read Ocean Vuong because I don't love his work. It's important to do that sometimes. If you have a particular bug about someone, you've got to figure out why. There's usually a good reason why. So that's another one I would recommend, because maybe you'll like it, even if I'm not the biggest fan. It's fine. You can read something and not love it. It's good. It's fine.
Also, what is your favorite type of writing for yourself? What's your favorite thing to write? Be it poetry, novels, books, others, and then what is your favorite to read and consume?
Ooh. Well, for me to write, I would say my favorite, it has to be just kind of longhand journal entries, because it's the easiest to write stream of consciousness that way, and I get so much good content out of it. What I'll often do is I'll write pages of schlop thought, right? That doesn't necessarily mean anything except that it's coming from my mind. And sometimes I cannibalize from that, and I take things from that and incorporate it into my poetry. And I love reading poetry. It's hard because I have a hard time with a lot of popular contemporary poetry. I don't like it. Sorry, Rupi Kaur, I don't like your work. I love you. Get your bag, but it's not for me. But that's when you find authors like Anne Carson who are writing poetry in a different way. And of course, she's a classicist and has been around for, at this point, quite a while. When I'm reading poetry, I'm always looking for jarring, unique, different. I'm not interested in the hyper-confessional. I'm interested in the obscure. And I feel like that translates in my work. Some of it's a bit confusing, which is good because I'm trying to confuse you sometimes. I'm trying to stir you up. And that's the kind of thing I like to read, is stuff that stirs me up. So.
And so we'll go on to what are you working on right now, and then getting on to your book.
Right. So right now, I am still sort of making my way through what I'm going to just call the flood of backed up ideas that I've had in the process of writing this book, because it's taken me about 7 years to write Sweetheart. It's been a long journey. Right now, I'm working on a project about the myth of Sybil. So I won't say too much about that because it would take me a long time to really get through what research I've conducted thus far. And I'm in the research process of it right now, reading and sort of just following the thread, which is part of the process for me. It's just kind of following whatever thought kind of matriculates from my reading. And so Sybil is a deity, a very old Anatolian, so modern day Turkey deity, who has a large role to play in world history, but nobody really knows it. So I'm trying to, like Anne Carson, work with the ancients a little bit and come up with something. I'm trying to pull out what's inspiring me about that and put it back on the page. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay. All right. So now, do you want to introduce us to your book?
Sure. So this is Sweetheart. This is my book of poems. How to introduce Sweetheart. I've been told that I actually do a pretty good job of describing it, even though I don't feel like I ever do a good job of describing it. In the acknowledgments of the book, Dr. Luke Hathaway put it very, very aptly to me that it was like a love letter and a grief song in one. It is a very heavy book about my younger sister, who is an addict, whom I love very dearly. I would say that every person alive on the planet today has at least one person in their life, alive or dead, who they have a bond with. You meet some people who you just know you came in with them, right? And they're your person. And even if you don't feel like you've met that person yet, they exist. They're out there. And Erin, my sister, is that person for me. So I'm very grateful, right, to have her as a sister, right? Like to know that person for me is someone that I've had since day one. We're only a year apart in age, so that's important. We're, to use a derogatory term, Irish twins. Because we're not twins, but to look at us side by side, we're very similar. And so the book is a process of me working through memories. When we first moved here, it was difficult, like I said. And my parents maybe didn't belong together. Sometimes you just realize that about people. They shouldn't have been in a relationship, but here we are, right? And you can't say you regret. I don't regret my own life, and I certainly don't regret having been born. So there's difficulties to work through that I'm doing in this book, and I'm also trying to fill in parts of my life that Erin has not been present for because of her addiction, because of the pain that she deals with, which, when you love somebody like that, who's going through that issue, that disease, it almost becomes, in a way, your pain. The pain is that you don't know, right? And everyone's a little different, but Erin hides and has been hiding for a long time. And I have a history of hiding. There's so many parallels in our lives because we are, I would say, soul-bound. And again, I'm very grateful that I have her in my life. But this was the one thing that I was good at doing, that I could do for her, while also telling my story is intertwined with hers. And so I'm attempting to do that here. When I presented this at Algo University, I talked about some of the inspirations for the book. There's two books that inspired this one. First was Fyodor Dostoevsky's Notes from Underground, which is widely considered to be his blueprint for Crime and Punishment. And then the other is Ariel by Sylvia Plath, of course, which is more close at hand to Sweetheart than Notes from Underground, because Sylvia Plath, among many other things, taught me that you can write like this and it's valuable, and it's bloody and a bit messy. And there's a reason why the book is read. It's because there's a lot of pulp to it, I would say. It's very pulpy. But you can do that. You can write like that, and you won't die, which is ironic because she did die. But you can make your way through it. And there's a part of you that will probably pass in the process, which is, I'm the biggest advocate for even if you write something like this and it never goes further than you, it's still valuable. It's still more valuable than if you were to sell 1 million copies. It doesn't matter. That doesn't really matter. What matters is the act and the process and the dedication. I'm a very spiritual person, and this is a type of veneration for me. And it doesn't have to be people who are dead. I am partial to Maya Angelou's way of thinking, which is that you can bring people with you who love you everywhere you go, and you should call on them, and you need them, and I do. And I'm calling in this book. I'm trying to reach out to her, even though it's impossible to reach out to her sometimes because she shuts herself away from the world. And I've done the same thing, right? So I get it. But that's the best way that I can describe this book without getting too much further, because I could talk all day. That's sort of what you're in for.
And then, so also, what advice would you give someone who's sort of like beginning their professional writing career, or who's maybe thinking of going into writing?
My advice is anti-advice, which is don't take any. Just write. And it doesn't matter what it is, right? There's really... You could grow up as a writer like that, taking in ideas from other great writers. Stephen King is famous for talking about how the use of adverbs is a death sentence to writers. I think and I believe it's vastly preferable to write something with a lot of adverbs and then make your way out of it than to not write at all because you're afraid of making a mistake. Avoid taking too much advice, because that will just stop you from the process. And the process is what is powerful. It's what's important. And if you're not looking back on your writing a year, 6 months after, and you're cringing, then you're not doing it right. That's growth. If you're in pain looking at your old stuff, that means that you've moved. And good writing for me is about movement. You should be in a river when you're reading. And if you're not right, or on a path, or just being pushed along by some force, and if you're not, then that's just my litmus for good writing. I need to feel flow, right? And so if I'm going to give advice, even though it's against my own advice, it's to get in that. Just do it, and forget about the rules, and forget about what other people tell you should do, and just do it. And then you can figure the rest out later. There's no time limit.
And then I guess we will sort of finish it off with where can people find you online or get the book, things like that.
Right. So you can find me online on Instagram. It's just ashton.carter. My display picture is a weird, I guess, edited picture of a beach in Vancouver. That's the best I can describe it, but my name is on there. And on my Instagram page, you can find a link to my Substack, which I'm just recently restarting, and it's shrine.substack.com. And shrine is in the way that you would expect it to be spelled, SHRINE.substack.com. So that's where you can find me online. The book, however, is not available online yet. I have yet to decide on a platform to sell my book, because it's, there's more than a few options out there. But right now you can buy it physically from me if you run into me and you want a copy, because they're in the back of my truck. Or you can come here to the museum and buy them in the gift shop, lovely gift shop. Or you can go to Cafe for Good and buy a copy from Third Act Books. And right now they retail for $20. So that's sort of where you can acquire my art if you are interested in acquiring it.
Okay. Now, is there anything else you want to say sort of about you, about your writing, anything like that?
I mean, I guess I could make a little comment about what most people know me for, right? I think this is a bit of a surprise for some people, because most strangers, most people who aren't my friends, who know me as a reader of cards. I read tarot, right? And I've so far, living in the Sioux, almost lived here for 20 years, right? I've read a fair few people, and I feel like I've garnered a bit of a reputation for myself. And most people don't know this about me, right? And the point of me publishing this was not, I've always been clear on it, it's an act of love, but not just for Erin, it's for me. This is who I am, more than the cards. The cards are a part of me, but this is really sort of me offering to you who Ashton is, which has been difficult for me in the past. When my family first moved here, it was very difficult for my sister and I to find our place. And I'm not sure that we did really find our place. I mean, the Sioux is a transient location. It's a meeting place. It is a place of rapids. That is what it is. And it's a beautiful place. And I think that has value in that, in it being that. And so I don't think that it's a coincidence that we ended up here. Really, I think I was meant to come to this place of rapids from my Elliott Lake being an area of rock and pine tree right up in Mississauga. But this is who I am. And I mean, of course, I'll still read your cards if you really want to, but I'd much rather you talk to me about the book. And also, if you have questions, please ask me, because I'm, beyond loving that if you'd like to read it, I really would love to hear what you think of it, because I'm curious. Yeah, so I'll end there. That's what I'll say. Be curious.
All right, perfect.
Have you been to your local museum lately? Visit us at the Sault Ste. Marie Museum, located in downtown Sault Ste. Marie, the one with the big clock tower on the top. Our hours of operation are 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Tuesday to Saturday. We have 3 floors of exhibits that we constantly work on updating. The whole family is welcome, as we have activity sheets and scavenger hunts with prizes for every kiddo, a discovery gallery full of hands-on learning, and more interactive elements scattered throughout the museum. And don't forget to come say hi and let us know you're a listener of the podcast.